All right, so hello everybody. Welcome to another Blue Table Talk with Derek Smith and Intercessors Investigative and Training Group. Today I have brought together a panel of individuals, a panel of experts, so we can talk about what happened this week in our Capitol, about the Capitol events, the riot in the Capitol, whatever you might want to call it. Now, in this talk, we are not going to talk about politics. We're going to talk about the law enforcement response, share our expertise about what we thought of it and what could have happened, what should have happened. We don't really want to be backseat quarterbacks, but we do have an expertise in this area and we want to talk about it. I know a lot of questions are out there and we want to share that expertise. So I want to start off with this. Before I get started, what I want to do is I want to go around. I want to introduce you to the folks on the panel. They're going to give you a brief explanation of their expertise and who they are. I'm going to start with Clinton Stonewall. There, can you just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, hello. Good evening, everyone. My name is Clinton Stonewall, like Derek already announced. I'm a retired naval officer with 30 years. And I've been retired now for about 2.5 years. And I'm not an expert in this field, although my expertise is the fact that I'm an American citizen. And I was appalled at the events that I saw. And, when you look at things like that, you ask the question, how far along will this be able to happen to me, in our country? How could something like this happen? And I think that was the question that everybody's asking on their mind, regardless of where you are in your level of understanding. That's the one question that's being posed to everyone, especially from a civilian standpoint. How could something like this happen?
Yes, I wanted to bring Clinton on as our lone civilian because I didn't want to just have law enforcement security folks on. I wanted to have a civilian here who can ask questions from your point of view, because I know there's questions out there. Next, I want to go to Chuck. Chuck?
Hey, my name is Charles Roberson. I've been in the law enforcement career field since 1990. Been in various different positions from as Illinois State Trooper to Deputy Sheriff out in Missouri to the federal side. I was a police chief. I was a criminal investigator with the Air Force Office of Special Investigations when I was active duty military. And now currently I'm in the anti-terrorism physical security realm.
All right. Thank you, Chuck. Rick.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Rick Sanchez. I'm currently out of Scottsdale, Arizona. I've been in the private security sector for about 20 plus years. I own Full Number Protection Group, which we have offices in Illinois, Arizona, Nevada, and California.
We'll have one in Maryland soon. Just kidding.
So, I don't want to compete. I'll work with you.
Thank you, Rick. Rico.
My name is Rafael David, retired special agent from several alphabets. Been in this business since '84. Like I said, now I'm retired and enjoying the civilian life.
Thank you, Rico. Steve.
Hey, my name is Steve Wittebort. I'm retired from law enforcement. I was on the job for 22 years with Pontiac Police. We're known as Baby Detroit up in Michigan. Same crime rate, same everything that comes with it, just a smaller scale. I was a homicide detective for 18 years. That's our team for 12 years. Have my own executive protection investigation company for 16 years now.
All right. Thank you, Steve. And again, my name is Derek Smith. I have a background like these guys. I've been in this field for 30 years now. I was a special agent in the Air Force OSI like Chuck. Rico and I worked together as Treasury agents some years back. We also served in the Army CID together. And then I was a federal agent for several government agencies. I was a deputy director for protective service at the Defense Intelligence Agency as well. So I was in charge of enforcing these type of things and making sure those type of things like we saw this week did not happen. So as you can see, I brought some experts together who understand law enforcement, security, understand how this is supposed to happen. So I just wanted to make sure I lay out our qualifications so you can know why you should listen to us when it comes to this. Now, we're not trying to backseat quarterback. We just want to throw out ideas and answer questions about what happened and how it could have been different. So here's what happened. We had the storming of the U.S. Capitol. And, to me, it was a disastrous failure in a city that's always on high alert, in a building with its own 2,000 person police department. People forced their way in with nothing more than flagpoles and riot shields. And my question is, how on earth could that happen? How are we not prepared to do that? So what I want to start off then, I'm going to start with you, Steve. Can you give us perspective on your thoughts from Michigan, from not being here, like some of us are right here in D.C. where this all took place? What were your thoughts about what happened this week, this whole Capitol attack, from your point of view?
Complete, utter chaos. Mm-hmm. Right. Looking from the preparation standpoint, I don't know where it failed. If it failed, sorry, Chief. From the chief of Capitol Police, if they became complacent, looking at all the other Trump rallies, lack of violence, lack of whatever, right? If they became complacent, or they totally disregarded all the tells that they had. There was so much tell on social media of what was transpiring, of whatnot. So I don't know if they didn't work in conjunction with DC police, with cordoning off the sector to restrict movement closer to the Capitol, right? So there's a lot of issues that came, but I'm just going to be blunt. It was piss poor planning, preparation on their part to allow this to happen. I mean, when you have every politician, including the vice president, and one sector, you don't have the manpower to put up that barrier. Now it's going to be hard pressed when you got 300,000 people there. It's going to be hard pressed to stop aggressive act if it's coming.
I'm going to agree with that 100% of what he's just said with that. Because the simple fact that within DC, they have more demonstrations than anywhere else in the country, probably in the world for that matter. Being that it's the hub of the federal government, they prepare for this kind of stuff. U.S. Capitol Police as well as D.C. Metro, they prepare for this, and they reach out. They have mutual agreements for mutual aid. In case of contingencies, there was a lot of chit chat that's been out there, a lot of intelligence that was out there that something was going to happen. And I'm going to agree with him 100% that I think the police chief got complacent because Trump rallies, for the most part, have been pro-police. And for whatever reason, they decided they wanted to go left field on this time. We've been going through the last 4 years of primarily of hard left organizations rioting in Seattle, Atlanta, Minneapolis, in DC itself. It was just a matter of time before something from the hard right decided to do. And I believe 100% that it was lack of preparation because they were thinking that the entire crowd was pro-police. And apparently there were some that just didn't care.
Rico, your thought on this? Oh, I'm going to get everybody around. I'll come back around, Steve. Rico, your thoughts on this?
I cannot disagree with anything that I have just heard, but I want to do something else. I would like to go inside the Capitol grounds, starting with the gates. It looked like it was a concert, the way they had the gates. And then I don't even want to deal with the opening of the gates and letting them in. But let's go to the Capitol building itself. If you are overwhelmed by intruders or whatever we're calling them, you pull you go to the Greeks, you pull Leonidas and Themistocles, you make them come through the smallest area and you hold that area and keep them bottled up. Mm-hmm. They didn't hold doors. Now, those are big doors, so maybe 5 or 6 guys could hold one door. You want to stick your hand through? Go ahead and stick. But what I saw, to me, it was as if they were new to the Capitol and didn't know the layout. They didn't know where they were strong and where they. I don't want to fight anyone in a great hall. I want to fight you in a very small hallway. And I want backup all around. I don't understand what I saw. It was as if they dropped some people in from another country and said, protect the Capitol that they've never seen. They did not. I saw one officer attempt to hold a stairwell by himself, but he was the only one I saw do anything like that until they showed, the images inside of the room where the officers were. Look, I don't know whether they were Capitol Police or Secret Service, plain clothes, but they had decided they were holding that particular room at gunpoint, right at the door. But I didn't understand what I was seeing.
So let me go over to Rick for a minute. Rick, for your opening view of what you saw.
I mean, I'm going to agree with Steve, right? It was utter chaos, right? I think it was just the planning wasn't there. I was doing executive protection detail here when they were in Arizona, when they were recounting the ballots here, right? We had more planning to me, it seemed like, with the team that we had. And you're talking about the barriers. We had bigger barriers and stronger barriers, just keeping the supporters, regardless of which side they were on, from the news crew and the people that we were protecting. It's just mind-boggling the amount of resources and the amount of money the Capitol Police have. And unfortunately, we're not allowed to FOIA that information, right? That is just information. That's not something we can get. So like you said, what did they prepare for? What equipment did they have? I didn't see anything, right? So it was utter chaos. It was sad to see that it was overrun that quickly by a group of people. I'm not going to describe unarmed, right? Now imagine the rest of the world seeing this and how vulnerable and easy it is to take over the Capitol.
Well, I saw something today. It was a cartoon, but it was of Osama bin Laden, and he said,
"Yes, I saw it.
Was this easy? I could have just walked up to the door." You mean? So Clint, what was your opening view of what you saw from a civilian point of view?
Well, I got to tell you, everything that the panel is saying is underscoring, and hallmarking the feelings, and I would say that's on everybody's mind. Yes, how could this happen? I got to tell you, growing up, and we used to always come up here and visit when I was a young man. Come up here and visit in DC. Capitol Police was always lauded for their organization. These are the ones, the entity that's going to protect the Capitol. They're protecting the White House, protecting the monuments and things of that nature. So there was a oath of respect that was there. And then when you hear things and you see things, incidents like what happened at the Capitol, and I remember hearing incidents. The last time I felt I had this feeling was when you get the reports. So somebody jumped the fence at the White House and they made it into the White House, and it's like, whoa, how did that even happen? And so now where I am, to and like you said, we're not sitting and doing the Monday morning quarterback, but when I sit here. Yeah, we want to go straight to leadership, but then in that leadership, I have to ask the question, what's going through the hearts and the minds of the individuals that are right there on the front line, the officer running up the steps, or the officer to decide, hey, I'm going to take a selfie here. What's going through their minds? What are they engaged with? From that standpoint, because we look at all the procedures and the SOPs and those things are in place, but then who execute those things? Being in the Navy, my level of understanding of force protection was on a ship out to sea and 5,000 miles between me and the next target. But the one thing that we all engaged with was mitigation. Force protection was a responsibility of every individual. And from what I saw on the TV, it looked like individuals just didn't understand what they were doing, what the procedures were. And even hearing down to our governor here in the state of Maryland was told not to send the National Guard in for the request. I mean, there was individuals on the outside saying, hey, I'm here to help. What do I need to get into? Because it doesn't look right. So those are my questions.
We're going to talk about that as well. So let me give you a little background. I went to FLETC with a class of Capitol Police officers. It was we had an entire contingent of Capitol Police officers. We had some of us from other agencies. I was from DIA at the time, going to class with them. So they got the initial 10 weeks of FLETC, mixed basic police training that we all get. Then when they graduated, they went on to a follow-on course that was probably, I think, about 18 weeks long or something like that. I don't remember the length. So they got in-depth training in how to do this. So I'm with you. I don't understand where the failure were. And I know people in the Capitol Police Department now and have been on the Capitol Police Department. I know they get the training. I don't know if it was overwhelming because they never had to deal with this in real life. You train for it, but you never had 300,000 people coming at you. But there was some monumental failures that I saw that I'm sure you all saw as law enforcement officers. But I want to start. I took some notes while you're talking. I want to go into the first thing somebody talked about, and that was intelligence. So as agents and officers, we know that we get intel when bad guys are coming. I won't say they were bad guys, but when things are coming to our town, events, we get intel about that. And from that intel, we start to prepare and we start to get our forces ready. Chuck, I'm going to start with you because you're kind of in the force protection realm. What do you think about the intel piece and what we should have done with that intel?
Well, we kind of may mention, the last time that we had spoke that, we're all first responders for the most part. Okay. Intelligence is, in my opinion, the thing that drives executable actions for force protection, for the law enforcement guys who are out there on the front lines and so forth and so on. I mean, without good intelligence, you go nowhere.
Do you think we had good intelligence? Do you think we had enough?
Absolutely. Oh, no ifs, ands, or buts about that. Even from what I've read, and the thing is that you have to prepare for it. We have to prepare for the what ifs. What if this happened? What if that happens? So I don't understand where the ball was dropped. I really don't. The only thing I can actually comment on is just things that have already been reported in the news. And like you said, we're going to try to stay away from the political side of it and everything. But, there was, from what I've heard, a request for help or assistance from Maryland State, the National Guard, the same thing for DC National Guard. As a matter of fact, DC, I believe, was asked to stand down until, stuff hit the fan. And then all of a sudden, the chief of the Capitol Police come running down the hallway, going over there to the DOD asking for help. Hey, this is going on right now.
Governor Hogan said he tried 3 hours to get in touch with the National Guard commanders, and it took them 3 hours to get back to him. He couldn't reach them on the phone to send them over here. Is what?
Yeah, I think in a way, it was almost like a perfect storm in a way. Even the mayor of DC, she, the request for the DC guys will come out, but from what I read and what I've heard on the news, she didn't want them to actually be there, or she wanted them to be there and not in uniform as a uniform presence. And we know, being in uniform, that's the first thing that you're supposed to do.
Well, sometimes having non-law enforcement running law.
It was a perfect storm, and to include for them not to even have weapons.
Yep. So Rico, I saw your hand up. I'm gonna go to you. Then I'm gonna go to you, Steve, because I wanted to get your input from afar. Go ahead.
We should have been on alert since the movie about Washington being hit with Jared Butler. But for them to be ready to attempt to kidnap, because it wasn't all of them, but some of the members of this group tried to kidnap the governor of Michigan, and they were looking for the governor of Virginia. We made arrests on this. We knew they were talking about putting her on trial and then executing her. Okay, that should have the flag should have went so far up the pole after that. Then you turn around, and here's another flaw that needs to be addressed. The mayor has no control over anything that happens on federal property, period. Second, she can't even control her own National Guard. She
has a whole thing now talking about they're using this as impetus as to why DC should become a state, because she's not a governor. you know, the governor controls the National Guard. So really, she doesn't have any control over the National Guard because this is not a state. So that's the only way she became up. That's what she said today.
She's a grown woman living at her parents' house, trying to tell them what she wants to do. That's not going to work.
Yeah.
It's not going to work. Yeah.
Steve.
Brother Derek, may I ask a question?
Sure.
To the panel. So are there protocols to meet contingencies such as this? I'm sure there's a think room or a think tank where people sit around and talk about the what ifs. But are there protocols in place to not we're talking about not a mob rushing the Capitol, but what are the contingencies for in the whole effort of Homeland Security? Who's talking to who? I heard the gentleman say that there was
working group.
Yeah. So are there things put in place to meet these things? And then if there are, I mean, you mean to tell me that there's someone who can say, no, we're going to turn it off or we're not going to do that right now?
Well, let me say this, and Chuck was starting to answer about Homeland Security because that's kind of their role. But let me say this: any organization I've ever worked in, or any organization if you have actionable intelligence, and you have the potential of violence, the potential of any type of attack, there are folks who get together, task force or whatever, and we talk about these things and we plan these things out and we put mitigations and measures in place to deal with them. So we knew that we have actionable intelligence. Violence has been going on for a while. Violence has been called for. I'll say this. We dealt with these things in other states, be it BLM and T, whatever they want to call it. We've dealt with this and saw the violence. And then at home, where we have, let me say this. Our entire Congress and vice president could have been wiped out just like that. All our leadership could have been wiped out.
And vice president-elect.
Yeah. Could have all been wiped out in one fell swoop. It's like you said, it's like a movie. We got them all together now. Let's take them out. So it could have happened. So yes, that is. Anybody want to answer that question from our civilian?
I'll jump in there.
Well, hold on 1 second, Rico, because Chuck, you started saying something.
The only thing I was making mention about, I was answering this question. You know, what do we do? We hold a threat working group. We get together and we think of what ifs. And then from the what ifs, we make recommendations for defensive measures, you know, to mitigate possible actions that may happen.
Mm-hmm. So, Rico, I'm gonna go ahead, Rico. Then I want to go to Steve. I have a question for Steve and Rick, but go ahead.
And keep this one thing in mind. In Washington, D.C., it is the federal government, and the mayor has some ancillary responsibilities. Two, in Washington, D.C., someone can override all those groups that we're talking about by simply not answering their phone. That needs to be addressed. Mm-hmm. It turns out that the vice president, who does not have the authority, okayed a lot of things on Wednesday. Mm-hmm. Just like George Bush violated his oath of office during Katrina, when he did not have a request yet. Back in the day, I was part of that. He did not have a request, and he sent the military in anyway. Mm-hmm. Even though he did take a long time, he didn't have a formal request from the governor when he sent the military in. So we're in this situation. And one last thing, and I'll let everybody else jump in. If we need 100 people at every position, we are not fully staffed and haven't been for 4 years. We're not fully staffed. There are tons of jobs out there that are important. That's why they exist. And they have never been filled. Never been filled.
I don't know if those would have had a bearing on what we saw the other day as far as leading the law enforcement, because there's a sergeant at arms, there's a police chief. But Steve, I want to ask you, I want to get back to the intelligence piece, because we're here in Washington, D.C., and we've been dealing with this. I mean, I was on the 9/11 response. Rico, you on the 9/11 response. So you, Chuck. We all see things different here in D.C. So how do you and Rick is next act on the intelligence that you get? What would be? There's plenty of intelligence. So what would have been your response, starting with you, Steve, with all the intelligence we had? Did you think we had enough to do something? And what would you have done?
I think you had more than enough intelligence to act. I think you had more than enough intelligence to prepare and make a plan. Now, obviously, all of us in our industry, you can only make the security barriers so strong, right? Eventually, if someone wants to get through, they're going to get through. You just want to make it as difficult as possible, right? I don't think they act on anything, and I don't know if it's because in you guys are on the East Coast, so you have more knowledge of this than I. Do you think the Capitol Police were complacent? Because yeah, Chuck, they do have a lot of protests, but the protests are minute in size of compared to what we just encountered, right? You might have 100 people protesting where they can control it, not 1,000. Were they complacent? And obviously their mental attitude, you know.
No. You're talking apples and oranges on this one, because there was a riot of about 1,000 people. They had a protest about 100,000 people. Okay, so you can't say that, you know, all 100 and something odd thousand people came in and stormed the Capitol.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying, is it possible that the Capitol Police are complacent based on all their previous protesting and whatnot, that really don't deal with things on that magnitude, right? So you had to.
I don't have any personal knowledge of what happened and what went on. I just basically report what's been on the news, and from what I understand, the Capitol Police didn't even have any less than lethal on them.
Right.
So that's a big failure.
So hold that thought for a minute. I'm going to come back to that complacency issue. I got that down. I want to talk about that for a minute. But Rick, last one on the intelligence piece.
Obviously, I mean, I wasn't there to hear what intelligence we had out there, but it makes sense. I mean, we get intelligence reports. I mean, just from some of the smaller details that we do, or even as security owners, right? For them not to act appropriately and prepare. I think what confuses me is when did Capitol Police, or when did we decide that we want to become reactive instead of proactive, right? I think that was the biggest piece that I saw is, as law enforcement and security professionals, we're supposed to be the ones that are proactive, right? When you get permits saying, hey, you're going to have this many people, regardless of who they are, I don't care if it's a church group coming out, right, of 100,000 people, you know that somebody's coming, right? So I think we had intelligence there. I just think we didn't do anything with it, right? Or we didn't do enough. When the people that were storming the Capitol, they're more prepared from, I think Chuck was talking about the equipment standpoint. I saw more pictures of protesters and people rioting in with zip tie restraints, and we have our Capitol Police and our other law enforcement agencies with nothing.
Yeah, and that amazed me. I saw rioters with zip ties. Yeah. So what the heck were they planning? They were planning
hostages.
It goes back to taking the hostages, right? I mean, that's the one they were looking for. And then, you have those who were, you had those female employees who were walking out with the delegates, right? And they're carrying the boxes. Where were they? They were, I mean, luckily nothing happened to them, but who were they looking for, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, see, that's the thing. That goes back to the intelligence thing. They have said, like Rico said, they have said on television, Instagram, Facebook, everywhere else, what they plan to do. And usually, like, let's say Secret Service, we work for Treasury. Secret Service even hear a threat against the president. They're sending agents out to go knock on your door, to talk to the folks who made those threats. I don't care how minute that threat is. If you say something, they send agents out. We got people threatening Congress. Congress have protective service and police. I don't know if they sent people out or not, but we had intelligence saying this was going to happen. So I want to move to that complacency piece then. We have the intelligence, so were we complacent? And I like what you said, Steve. Were we complacent to the point where, we have protests all the time? This is just another protest. Or should we have said, these have been, I mean, we've heard about violence coming our way. We know that there's potential for violence. We see violence from these things, from these type of protests on both sides in other cities. So all of us know, and we would have done it. Did they become complacent to the point where they say, hey, we got this? Or do we feel like there was something else? Let's talk about the complacency piece. And Steve, did you want to say anything else on that?
No, that's all I was focused on was complacent. I'm just picturing myself in the games that we've had here, right? Different concerts, different venues. The sorry-ass Lions playing Chicago Bears. All they did was fight. It was cops and firefighters from Green Bay, Chicago. Mm-hmm. They come to our town in Pontiac and and they're fighting in the parking lot. So we didn't have crowds of that magnitude, but we're there.
Think about this. You were better prepared, Steve, to deal with people fighting over a game than we were to deal with people storming the Capitol.
Oh, for sure. And the other factor that no one's really addressing is, when did they update, or have they updated safety procedures at the Capitol? I mean, I'm looking, there's no reason why people should be able to break out a window and climb through the side window of the Capitol, or have multiple entries into that building. It should be restricted to one point entry so you can control the flow of traffic, right?
And they said some doors weren't even guarded, is what I've heard. Clint, what's your thought on the complacency that we're talking about from your point of view?
Well, that's a good question with the complacency. And you have to ask, what makes a person complacent? Where does it come in? Why do you let your guard down? And why didn't they look at this as being a viable threat? Those are the things that go in. I tell you, when the Black Lives Matter protest was going on in DC, and they were getting the word that the march was coming days before the protest was going to happen, I saw plywood being built up. They put a fence around the White House, put barriers around. So there was things that was being taken in consideration because of who was coming. Like the gentleman said, somebody's coming to your area. So let's put things in place to mitigate what could happen. I've been around the Capitol when they have the State of the Union. The weeks before the State of the Union is going to take place, that place is fortified. But this right here, complacency set in because they let the guard down as not being a threat.
Well, I'm gonna venture to say this, Dan, because like you said, State of the Union and all that, we get prepared for it, right? And they're not complacent and they're ready. So was it really complacency or was it something else? Why would it be complacency if we could not complacent when other events occur? Now, I don't know what happened behind the scenes, but should we ever be complacent in Washington, D.C.? Now, let me say this about that job. Even though they're Secret Service police, even though they're Capitol Police, they're pretty much security guards. So complacency set in when you're doing security, because every day we go with nothing happening and then all of a sudden something happens. But remember this, folks. Capitol Police had a couple of officers killed a few years ago. So I don't even know if they should be thinking complacent when they've had, you remember that, Chuck? They had the Capitol Police officers shot. Yeah. So if I had something shot before, why would I be complacent knowing that there's a possibility guys are going to be coming with guns, pipe bombs, knives? These weren't, you can anticipate that we're probably going to have Proud Boys coming or whatever they call. We're probably going to have other groups who are prone to violence coming. Why aren't we ready for it? So, so this complacency thing with me, it's kind of hard because in this area in DC, we're ready for these type of things. At least we should be all the time. So was there something more than complacency? And we can explore that in a few. Rico.
Yeah, to your point, DC is a hot zone, period. Always has been, always will be. Mm-hmm. You had the shooting at the Capitol at the magnetometer. Someone tried to introduce the weapon. Then you turned around and had the shooting at the baseball game or softball or, softball game in Alexandria, where the congressmen were playing, and one was shot. The two Capitol Police sergeants were the only reason that they survived. The rest of them survived. So this whole complacency thing doesn't go with a badge and a gun.
So let me go into this then. We talk complacency, perhaps. How does that explain watching folks taking taking stuff out of the Capitol, taking selfies with folks, things like that? So I want to move to that subject.
Oh man,
Chuck, you can start.
That's a sore subject, partner. Because
and that's why I want to move to that.
That goes on to this culture that we're in today. Because now law enforcement they're almost afraid to act because of not only video cameras, just the simple fact that we're the bad guys now. We're not the protectors anymore. We're the bad guys. And so in this culture that we're in, for every action, there's a reaction, so to speak. And, I hate to say that some agencies are pulling back. There's cops retiring early. No, I mean, this is a bad time to be in this career field.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
but think about this, guys, and I want your view on this. Your castle has just been breached by the enemy. The enemy is coming through the door, and I stop and take pictures with them. So I understand what you're saying, Chuck, about this is the times we do the selfies, and our hands are tied.
I'm not saying about doing selfies.
No, I know what you mean. Our hands are tied because there's so many things we have to worry about besides just police work. You know, what's going to be civilians' point of view? If he would have punched the guy in the nose instead, we would be saying, why did he punch that innocent guy in the nose? You know, so we have to look at it from this point of view, though. Our castle was stormed, the castle gates were broken through, and the enemy were inside. And we stopped and decided we want to take pictures with them. So Rick, what your thought on that? I know Chuck want to say something. I'm looking.
You know that.
I'll come back to you.
You see stuff like that, and you just, I can't imagine, right? I mean, what they were thinking. I mean, they're not celebrities. I mean, I've fired officers for a lot less, right? You know, just a quick closing your eyes, you're done. Right. But for you to see all that was going by, you might as well have just taken off your jacket and walked with them. Right. I mean, that's the honest way that it felt about it. It's just
hold their hand and help them out when they come out.
Yeah. I mean, it's let me help you to your car with that. That doesn't work in our field.
Hold on, Rico. I'll get to you. Hold on. Go ahead, Rick. Any more, Rick?
No,
Steve, your take on that.
Well, I'm with him since, Rick and I it seems like we do a lot of the same things for the civilian side of executive protection. Right? That's hands down gone.
Rick, I want to ask you something. That's a good point of view. You in executive protection. And what is one of the things we say in the executive protection field? We are not the celebrities. We shouldn't be talking to them. We shouldn't be interacting with them. We shouldn't be trying to be friendly.
Not a part of the story.
We're not in their world.
So now we're police officers on the Capitol Police. We should not be friends with them. We should not be interacting with them. We should not be trying to take pictures with them.
At all.
Chuck, I'll go with you first because you were chomping at the bits. Then I'm going to hit Rico. I got a question.
No, I was just saying, because once again, in this culture, to answer your question, what do you do when your home is being invaded? You know, the doors are being kicked in. What do you do? Our brothers are out there and they're frozen. Mm-hmm. And in this particular instance, from what's being reported, they didn't even have enough less than lethal in order to protect. Mm-hmm. So maybe, MPD, Metropolitan Police Department, they did, but they were elsewhere. Mm-hmm. But the Capitol Police, from what I've been hearing, they did not. Mm-hmm. So what are they supposed to do? All they have is, they have their weapons out and they have the weapons drawn. Are they to shoot or not shoot?
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to say this though. All the six of us, including Clinton, who was the Navy commander, even if they breach my castle and I can't do anything because I'm outmanned and outgunned, I will not become your buddy though. I'm not going to shake hands and smile and take pictures with you. As the Japanese used to say, whomever, I'm going to fight to the very end. Now I know they're outnumbered, but I'm not going to all of a sudden say, "Oh, we're cool." Oh yeah, go get that podium over there and pose with it while you're at him. Steve, you were trying to say something.
So I think really what comes down to is how serious are these officers when they're in their training, right? You train the way you fight the way you train. So how many times do we go into, training on the job, right? And you're like, damn, I got to do this stuff again. And you're not taking it serious, right? And so your mindset isn't there. So everybody wants to dog out the one cop that was running up the stairs who had a baton. I give him credit. He was trying.
Oh yeah.
To create space. He was trying to create distance. He was stopping their attack.
Slowed them.
Advanced on him, right?
Momentum. Yep.
With a baton. He had the gun out. Why didn't you draw it? I don't know. I don't know what's going through their mind except fear. And it's fear.
Well, I'm going to tell you what's going through their mind. And this is Derek's speculation. Okay. Well, Clint, I want to ask you, from your point of view.
I had a question with that right there because I was talking to my wife, and we're talking about someone invading your castle, and you being on guard to protect your castle, of course. Now, if the word was given to stand down or not engage, the police officer that shot the young lady, did he mess up? I mean, or was he justified in shooting her? And also, we're talking about the Capitol Police. Do they take the lion's portion of the blame on what didn't happen?
So let me ask, I'm going to be first to answer that. I'm going to give you 2 points of view on that. I was about to get that point of view. I really, truly feel that they were told to stand down. And when I say stand down, not to, they didn't really want to hurt these people. They didn't really want to go out with this force and shoot anybody and all that. So when and I'm saying this because I've been told this before. So when you told to stand down, the thought going to your head is, I don't know what I'm supposed to do then. Am I supposed to engage and fight these folks? Am I supposed to stand back and, as long as they're not trying to kill or hurt anybody? Hey, if they take, it's just property, take the property. It's just somebody's desk, put your feet up on it. So do I stand?
Hey, that's what Walmart says.
I've been told to stand down, right? So that's one view of it. And I had another view, what you said. So first of all, we don't know what to do sometimes. And in security police, when I was in the Air Force, they had guns, but they were told at one base I was at, don't draw your guns. Don't use your guns. So I was OSI. When we come to the door, we had our guns out, and we asking the security police, hey, what are you doing? Why don't you have your guns out? We've been mandated that we don't pull our guns out unless we're actually going to shoot someone. So you're looking at the point of view from these Capitol Police officers. We don't know what they were told before this happened, and how they were told that, we have rules of engagement. And I'm sure that Steve can attest to this. Rick can attest to this. All the guys, when you're going to have an event or have something happen, you have rules of engagement before that day happens. They're going to tell you how they would like for you to conduct business. Now, let me say this. We all got to hand it to those individual officers. That guy getting chased up the stairs, even if he would pull his gun out to fire, it's 10, 20 people coming at him. He would have got a shot or two off. They would probably been more angry, and they would have killed him. Let's go to the lady that you're talking about. And I'm going to go to Steve for this, and probably Rick as well. But when you're protective service, you have a different role than the police officers. So those police officers there have their role that serve, protect, whatever they need to do as a police officer. But those inside that chamber that we saw with the guns pointing at the doors that were either Secret Service or Capitol Police, plainclothes protective service, they had a different mission, Clint. Their mission was to protect lives. So if somebody coming through the door into that chamber, their job is to evacuate while the others defend and shoot. So the police officers might have responded different. They have different training. They have different rules of engagement and different guidelines. Does anybody agree or disagree with that? Want to expound on that?
I totally agree.
Go ahead, Rico.
Look, I would have to see their training because when I ran internal affairs, you were supposed to do what your training told you. And in a moment of stress, you revert back to your training. There's no way they should have not held their ground, even if they had to go to high ground to do it, if they had to retreat to an area it was as if they didn't know where those areas were.
But it's hard. But it's hard, man, because, do they surround and open fire into the crowd and start taking everybody out? I don't know what the right answer is. There's 60 hurt officers and one dead one. So I don't know what the answer to that one is.
They teach them crowd control.
Derek
teach crowd control.
Yeah, Derek says defend yourself to the end. Now, Steve, you were saying something about executive protection a second ago. What were you going to say?
I was saying that when you're talking about the protocol of the plainclothes inside, whatever their position was, I'm sure they had a different protocol than the uniform, right? Mm-hmm. And theirs is to nobody's coming in this area by any means. Now, unfortunately, in our field, we have to critique. That's how we stay alive, by critiquing others' mistakes.
Sure. Lessons learned.
So the only thing that I could say with that is when he shot through the door, he just shot. There's a hell of a background behind him called more people. I don't know if they're panicking because they're trying to rush the door. I can't judge him to say that he didn't make the right decision.
Well, Steve, remember also they said she was coming through a window. So I don't know if she was coming through a different path. It's a lot of stuff we still got to learn, but go ahead.
You know what we say though, right? You play stupid games, you get stupid results.
There you go. Stupid prizes.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah. So does that answer your question, Clinton, about the different protocols that they perhaps had?
It does. To follow on with that, I read where a sergeant at arms was fired, and that's why I was asking. Okay, so who gets the lion's portion? I mean, the only armed standoff that you saw on TV was from the inside the chamber going out. Those are the ones that had the guns drawn, the weapons drawn. But I look at now. There's heads their positions starting to roll as if, okay, we have evidence that you were complacent or you were negligent in your execution of your duties, and these are the ones that are being fired. So that's why I said, well, who gets the lion's portion of this whole deal?
So let's move to that, and I'm going to have Chuck start. I have a reason for that, but let's get to that because here's the thing: the sergeant at arms should have been fired because he has the ultimate responsibility. Well, I'm going to get to that one too. But he has the ultimate responsibility for the security of the Capitol, not the chief of the police. The sergeant at arms has the ultimate responsibility. Of course, I believe the chief of police, in my opinion, should have been fired as well. But I want to move over to Chuck for a minute because he was a police chief. And see, I have a point of view from the ground where I think who's responsible. But I want to look at what a police chief says as far as responsibility for management on those things that's happening on the ground. So, Chuck, I'm going to start with you.
Okay, the big thing that I wanted to point out, and Clint said it, he said it perfectly. Actually, there's a difference between being negligent and being complacent. Okay, in my opinion, they were negligent in their duties here. Okay, it wasn't just simple complacency. Somebody didn't do something, and in my opinion, which probably doesn't mean anything, but I believe it was intentional. Somebody did something intentionally. So from a police chief standpoint of view, you bear responsibility for everything. OK, and that's just simple. That's just simple fact of it. You take the blame for everything. But you're supposed to surround yourself with people who can do the job. OK, and that's key. OK, you don't put in your friends or somebody that doesn't have the experience. You're supposed to put experienced people around you in order to do the job, because the police chief can't do everything. But with an event such as this, he better be involved in everything that's going on. Hands down.
Congress said they didn't hear from him for 2 days, for 48 hours.
So in my opinion, justifiably, he needs to be fired. Or I know he resigned, but they should have went ahead and fired him prior to that.
They were nice. Rick, you own a company with a force. You own Full Armor. You are the CEO. You're the head of that company. What do you think about the responsibility aspect of leadership if one of your officers did something on a remote post? You're not there. You can't judge it. But what do you think the ultimate responsibility was? Let's talk about this responsibility thing from your point of view.
That's on me, right? That means I, as a leader, failed somewhere down the line.
Yep.
It was maybe I didn't directly train him. Maybe I didn't directly hire him because he got hired out of my office in Illinois. That means I didn't train my directors right. That means they didn't train their supervisors right. That means they didn't train the managers right. So ultimately, as a CEO, regardless of if you're the president of the United States, you're the CEO of that country, right? You're president of your business. You're the CEO of that business as well. Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, it falls back on me. Now, I can tell you this. In corporate America, if I failed as a leader, they're not giving me an opportunity of when I get to choose the day that I leave, right? So I find it shocking, and we're just talking about it, he resigned. So he's like, I'm going to pick the 16th of when I'm going to leave. No, you're leaving now. You messed up. You're leaving now. You're not getting. I'll in some corporate worlds, guess what? You're not able to clean up your desk. They said, we're walking you out the door. We'll mail your stuff to you. He's getting the opportunity to stay another week, do what he's got to do, and then take another couple hundred days off because that's how much sick time he has. Right. So 4 days before an inauguration, we have a lame duck chief, I guess you would say, with more stuff that we need to prepare.
Temporary,
right. It's mind-boggling.
And I'm gonna say this: all of us are thinking this. None of us want to say it, but I really don't think it just came down to the police chief and the sergeant at arms. There were a lot of decisions made in a lot of departments, a lot of agencies. And, because we have failure in the DC Guard. We have failure possibly in the D.C. mayor's office. She might have been saying, hey, it's federal ground. If they don't invite me, Let them go. I'm not coming over. We have failure. What about the Secret Service? What about the what is it called? Force Protection Service.
Time out, Derek. Because you and I can't remember exactly who said about the mayor not having jurisdiction because it's federal property. Mm-hmm. MPD's got jurisdiction throughout the entire place. They got jurisdiction in the White House. They got jurisdiction on all military installations. So
but what was said, Chuck, is that they said that she cannot send her force on the federal property unless she's invited to. She can go all the way up to the street, but she cannot put a force on federal property unless she's invited by the Capitol Police. And this is written in several places, by the Capitol Police or someone like that. But so that was my thought behind that. Because when you and I talked earlier, I went and did some research, read a bunch of articles, and they said that on all the federal areas that she has to be invited on to that in order to enforce the law. If they would say send me MPD, she could have sent the whole force over if she wanted.
Except for essential, existential circumstances.
Yeah.
They can go ahead and come on in.
So that's a good point. That should have been
that was a red flag right there.
You said get in the bus and go over there and save all of them. Yeah. But she might have been saying.
But they didn't call. They never called.
Well, it's politics involved. She probably would have said, because her and Trump have never gotten along or whatever. She might have thrown up her hands. I don't know. We don't know that, but I agree with you. That's I can't think of the word, but that's a circumstance. Circumstance. So that's one of the things. My brain not working. I truly believe we're going to find out there's a lot more behind these decisions that were made, and there's going to be a lot more firings because of them as this comes out. Let me go to my civilian. You got any other questions that the people out there probably want to ask? Clint?
No. I mean, as I'm learning so much here and how everything works as far as where the lines are drawn, even through our small place like the Capitol, in DC. Being transparent, you just don't see all that. I mean, when I go up there and I'm on visiting in the Capitol, I'm walking around, I feel secure. But what I saw on TV last night, it made me quite uncomfortable, as if, do they really have us in their best interest? Security of the national security, and how safe am I? And looking at what happened right there. I mean, I see so much. Security when it comes down to things like the Black Lives Matter protests, or when I go on the through TSA at the airport, those things. I mean, I already know what's about to happen. But that right there, I mean, there was people just walking, like the door was open, going straight into the Capitol and having their way.
So let me comment on that, because here's the thing. DC, and guys, correct me if I'm wrong, DC has the most police officers than anywhere else in the country, because of all these.
No. New York.
Well, New York has how many? Okay, so maybe second to New York. But we have, we have park police. We have every agency have police.
Okay.
I'm not talking about the police department. I'm talking about collective.
No, you're right.
Small place have this amount of officers. So what I'm trying to say is something like this. I don't care what anybody else come up with. This is a Derek point of view. Nothing like this should have ever happened in DC. We have
more controls all of them
officers here than we have people.
Who controls all of them?
Well, see, maybe that's a fallacy, Rico. Maybe there should be. I think Steve mentioned it earlier, or maybe there should be some central force.
No.
How do we have all these distinct groups?
Who controls them, though?
How do we get to coordinate and work together then?
Who controls them?
I don't know.
The executive branch. Who runs the executive branch?
Well, wait. Does the executive branch control the park police officers?
Yes.
Well,
yes.
So a phone call is made. Stand down. Yeah.
So you're talking about like a police czar. Okay.
Well, I mean, we
don't need no more czars.
We have a cyber czar. We have a cyber czar.
And who is that under? Who is that under?
So I want you. Well, that's under the executive. So that's a good point. All you shook your heads. You guys feel like there should not be a way to, when we have a circumstance like this, bring it all together?
No, you're talking about one big gigantic federal police force, which is what? Under socialism.
No, not a police force.
The FBI. No, we already have that.
Well, not a police force. I'm saying in a time. Well, let's say this. Let's say the Red Dawn movie. You know,
we like our movies.
Yes. So let's say that
I know
something like this was a force.
Life imitates art.
How do we coordinate a force in D.C. when the Capitol has been attacking all our government leaders in one place at the Capitol building, and we don't have a way to bring our forces together in D.C. to repel people who are unarmed and they're armed with flags and shields? How do we deal? We can't even deal with that.
Some of them were unarmed.
Huh?
Some of them were unarmed.
So check this out. You said earlier, somebody said earlier, it was probably about 1,000 that actually breached the Capitol.
That's what I had read.
So check this out. What if we had a force? What if they got, I don't know, let's just pretend. What if they got sleepers in and they're able to get a force of 1,000 people in with guns this time, grenades and bombs, and we can't even bring our forces together to repel guys with flags? Or will we respond differently when we know that threat is coming? We knew this threat was coming. Do we not know how to handle it when they say, well, they don't have guns and they don't have, so how do we can't share?
Who protects your house? Who protects your house?
Right, where it wasn't lack of preparation, lack of communication. They didn't compare for a contingency of that magnitude. Yeah, I don't know if there's egos involved. Like, who knows? And maybe they don't like Trumpers. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It appeared that pride got in the way of professionalism as far as the outside of security side, right?
So you saying maybe they thought,
hey, who you are. I don't care who you are as a cop. If I'm in the area and I see my brotherhood of Capitol Police in a shitstorm, if my group can help, we're not going to wait for an invitation. We'll deal with that, but I'm not letting them get hurt as a result of politics somewhere above my chain of command. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I mean, as an officer, everybody's thinking about their career and all that kind of stuff, but they always talk about that thin blue line, right? If I'm behind, I see these people storming the castle, I'm hoping that my allies are going to come help me when my castle is being stormed. I mean, there's a lot at play here. Yes, Rico.
If I'm at the 7-Eleven and the clerk's having a hard time and my Slurpee's starting to melt, we all have a problem there. We're going to fix that. See, I think one of the problems is, and I hate to say this, but I can't do it any longer. I don't think you have alpha and bravo males in law enforcement anymore. I think you have people, when the stress kicks in, and you know that your principals are average 65 years of age? Oh, no. You coming in here to do what? Oh, no, you not. No, you not. No. And I didn't see any of that except for the fellow running up the steps. He was determined to be a deterrent. But I didn't see that anywhere else until we got to the fixtures inside the chamber.
So I'm going to come back to that in just a second. Rick, you were about to say something.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna piggyback with what Rico just said. I think outside of the guard or officer who was, retreating backwards and handling himself very well, I don't think he could have done any other job. And thank God nothing happened to him, right? Right. But the interesting thing, it goes back to Steve. You're going to protect yourself, right? And you're hoping that your brothers in blue, right, are going to protect you. And I just wonder, and rest in peace, Officer Sicknick, who passed away from getting hit with a fire extinguisher. And why?
Is that what happened? Okay.
That's what happened. And he was, and the thing with him, and it's interesting because we talk about, Mr. Selfie, and we talk about, Officer Sicknick, right? Who, from my understanding, is he was actually fighting his way, right? He was doing his job, my understanding, what he should have been doing, and protecting the Capitol, right? And it got aggressive, and then that's what happened. In his eyes, he might have said, "Where are my guys at?" and thinking it was okay, right? And to doing what he's supposed to be doing, and unfortunately, it didn't happen that way.
So that's a good point. I want to switch gears for a minute. We talked about, all of us are old school. We've been around a while, right? So, and even Clint he was a 30-year military man. So I want to touch on that for a minute. In the thick of things, we know that 59 officers were hurt and 1 was killed. When does the gloves come off and now you're fighting for your life? I mean, when I say this, I'm not saying there should have been a lot of shooting going on or anything like that, but there could have, when I'm getting hit in the head with a fire extinguisher or other weapons and things, or things, there's fisticuffs now going down. When do we act like the alpha male, the protectors that we all are, because we're old school, and when do we go into full battle mode? So let me hear your thoughts on that.
Hey, don't pick up a fight with a 300-pound man and don't fight back. Don't pick a fight with someone who's gonna fight back.
You remember back in the day, if I remember correctly, I can't remember what case law it was, but we were actually allowed to hit first if we felt that we were threatened. I can't remember what the case law was on this.
Why do I have to take a punch before I, there's
a video on YouTube of a police officer. He was a lieutenant from New York, and he was talking to someone, and I guess the individual was giving him a lot of smack, and he basically, what was our old edict? We ask, we tell him, then we make you do stuff. And he asked the guy, and then he was being a little bit more forcefully, and then he made the guy do it. And he actually struck him first, and nothing happened to him because of the culture that we're in today. We're not like that anymore.
We have trial by internet today.
We have trial by internet. Very good.
Yeah,
Clint, you were trying to say something. I'm sorry.
No, I was actually agreeing with that statement. Don't pick a fight with a 300-pound man. I mean, what's the outcome unless you can handle it. You know what the outcome is going to be. I don't think there has to be a protocol in place for me to protect myself, even for a police officer out there. I mean, absolutely protect yourself. I mean, it's your life. When I remember when the birth of Homeland Security came, and how before that, there was a whole lot of dotted lines around the way information went out and who went where. The solid lines, if you will, when you look in the flow chart, the solid line was there, but it was all these dotted lines where people could circumvent procedures and circumvent communications and circumvent whoever was in the chain of command. And so you thought you was operating and going for the same mission, but in all actuality, everybody was on their own sheet of music. What I saw on the TV and how everything comes out now is that people are now trying to do damage control around why they did the right thing or why we were going by our procedures. I mean, even listen to the panel right here. I still have yet to hear how does all that information come together and people work together to the point to where now we are answering. I'm trying to find my words, but we are answering the problem of the solution. We're coming up with a solution to the problem. I mean, for a mayor or a governor from the state of Maryland to have to call in and say, "Hey, do you need my help?" I think that's a big problem right there. I mean, people on the outside saying, "I'm here to help. Do you need my help?" and still can't answer the phone.
So I'm gonna say that I know, and these guys on this panel, they know this. There are mechanisms in place for us to share information. Because when we were agents, when we were police officers, and things came down the pipe, we shared information. So you can't tell me that the information wasn't shared. That not only that, they probably knew that there's probably some weapons coming in. They probably knew there's some dissenters in the rank. They probably knew there was troublemakers that's going to be here that we should be keeping our eyes on. And let me tell you something else that we do. If you civilians don't know it, we even put plain clothes sometimes officers in the crowds. So those plain clothes people are floating through the crowds, kind of listening and seeing what's going on. So it was a monumental failure because we do those things on a regular basis, even if it's a football game. So for that not happening for something like this was unheard of. So I don't know where that came from. I'm not gonna keep you guys a whole lot longer, but I want to ask Dan a couple questions here. What about equipment? So what happened? I mean, we know. I'll say this: a protest, not a demonstration, but a protest is coming in. Why weren't those guys wearing, kits? They call them kits. Why weren't they in full protection, full gear, helmets, shields, like they did at some of the BLM places, like they did when you see the picture of the National Guard lining the Capitol? Why do you think these guys were not in the proper gear to protect themselves?
I'm not answering that.
Yeah, me neither.
I ain't touching that.
Well, you retired. You can say what you want to say now. What about Steve and Rick?
Nope, not touching that.
Rick, Steve, nobody.
I can't tell you why. I can't tell you why they weren't prepared. I can tell you that no matter when I get on an assignment or my team gets on assignment, regardless of what it is, we prepare the same way each and every time. Why they didn't do it, I can't answer, but I can tell you, and I'm sure Steve the same way. We'll prepare the same way each and every time.
I love that answer, Rick, because the answer is this. And Steve, you said it. And let me say this. Chuck, 8th degree black belt. Rico, Kung Fu master. Me, 2nd degree black belt. Rick and Steve, y'all have martial arts training?
I boxed for USA for 3.5 years. I boxed all my life.
Rick?
Same thing.
No.
So what do we say? And you said it, Steve. We train like we fight. And we don't go to some matches and say, well, this time I'm not going to take all my skills and I'm not going to wear a cup this time. Or I don't use my mouthpiece this time. I think I'm not going to use my mouthpiece.
You went to the cup before the mouthpiece?
The cup and the mouthpiece. I'm going to what you said, Rick. If they do it the same way all the time, we wouldn't have a problem. If every protest is you put on your riot gear and you go out and you're ready to move, then we shouldn't have a problem there. This is going to be a nice protest. Because as you all know in law enforcement, it can go to a smile, happy situation to chaos just like that. Steve, you said chaos.
You could get bum rushed by a bunch of nuns.
They could have pushed one guy and it went to chaos where everybody's fighting and fists are being thrown and things like that. Yes, Steve.
I'm also a firm believer not everybody should be a cop, right? And everybody should be in the protection field.
So
that's right.
I don't know when it went. So they went to this notion where you had to have a 4-year degree. You know, how many like? I used to be a little thug growing up, right? So I used to do a lot of fighting. So I used to laugh at these new cops that come on, like, did you guys always get beat up in high school? Because you're like a bunch of little girls right here. You know, you can't handle yourself if you want to.
You can't handle the truth.
It's the mentality of it. And I think the media has a lot of influence because now a lot of guys, they're afraid of being sued. Well, guess what? You shoot somebody, you're going to be sued. Mm-hmm. Injure somebody in the performance of your duties, there's going to be a civil lawsuit. It's coming. You just got to deal with this. Unfortunately, it's part of the job.
So I already interviewed Chuck and Rico individually. And here's the thing they said, both kind of echoed this. We come from a protector mentality. I brought the martial art thing. We come from a warrior mentality, you know, and old school law enforcement, gumshoe law enforcement, street, you know, Chuck and Rico, DC, Detroit, Southside Chicago. Rick, I'm not sure where you're from, but Chicago. I mean, when you go into law enforcement, you have to be tougher than the guys you're going to go up against.
Wait a minute, I'm from Philly, okay? So I want to make sure I let everybody know that.
Definitely Philly. But we had to have a mentality. Go ahead, Clinton.
And so with that being said,
from Alabama,
for the panel on here, are you surprised that there weren't more shootings in this incident, or should there been? I mean, because it sounds like they were following protocol, they were following rules of engagement, and they were just being mindful that we were told not right to.
You hit it right there. I think it was rules of engagement.
Yep, I do too.
Yeah, Clint.
We all think that.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say I was surprised there's not enough shooting. There wasn't more shootings.
Yeah,
there wasn't more action. I'll leave it at that. Right. So whatever proper action, like you said, whatever the rules of engagement are. Real quick, I want to go back to what Steve said. Is should all people become police officers, right? Or people who think they should become police officers, should they? And I can tell you this, my son is 6 and, outside of YouTube, watching YouTube and doing some other things, he watches the news, right? He knows what I do. He knows his grandfather. He knows his aunts and uncles are law enforcement back in Chicago, on the streets. And he saw the security officer with the selfie. He said, Dad, how come he wasn't doing anything? Like, oh, wow. I have a 6-year-old who knows what we do and what we should be doing in regardless if you're on the private side or the public side. He asked, why didn't he do anything?
Right.
I didn't know. I was shocked he even asked me that. And I couldn't give him a good answer.
That's because there isn't one, bro. There isn't one.
So I want to ask this question, you all. How many people have children on here? Everybody have children?
Amen.
So what do we tell our children about what they saw from the police response and just in general? We know it's been crazy. What do we tell our children? How do we explain this to people? Because people ask me because they know I'm in law enforcement. How do we explain this to children who watch this? I don't even know what to say. This thing that happened. What are the talk? I have 14-year-old girls and they asking me questions. You have a 6-year-old son asking questions. I know you have 2 children, Clint. What are your children asking you, and what are you telling them?
Well, I will tell you this. I know what the narrative is that's being put out there by the media and the sidebar conversations is that it's a black thing. I mean, even here the president-elect even comes out and said it would have been much different if it was a Black Lives Matter protest, or if it was black.
Got nothing to do with it.
When that narrative is being put out there, everything that we're talking about on the table right here, which is a good discussion, but what's easier to say is let's pull the race card. This is why it happened like this.
Yeah, but see, that's a big problem. Now I understand that. Believe me, I'm a black man. Most of us are people of color on here, except for one guy. No, I'm just kidding. but
well, we haven't tested it yet.
I want to say this: all of us are here. All of us are here as brothers in arms, brothers in law enforcement. And I understand that thing about about the politic thing, and I hate that it comes down to, and it's true. Why was this treated different than a Black Lives Matter march? They got more force with the National Guard and things out than they got with this. I don't know if that. Obviously there was a difference there, and there's privilege that exists. Steve, I want to put you on the spot for a minute because what's your point of view on that?
What was your question?
What's your point of view? Do you really think there's a racial divide, and that was part of this? Why this happened this way?
Yeah, there is. I mean, there's a racial divide unnecessarily. I think a lot of that is portrayed by the media, though. I mean, like I tell people, I'm from the inner city, right? Mm-hmm. Where I'm from is inner city all day long. So a lot of my friends are black. A lot of my friends are Mexican. Mm-hmm. Is white, whatever. I'm like, you guys get mad at white people saying it's white privilege. I said, I get mad at the media. I said, if you look at the media, I said, yeah, you had all these riots or whatever going on. Not everybody in the Black Lives Matter were violent. Majority were peaceful protests, but you had
and many weren't black.
And many were.
That's right. That's right.
Most weren't black that I saw. Right. It was a lot of white people who wanted to get in on some action or whatever. But what did the media show? The media showed only the black people, for the most part, acting out. They were showing the media. They were showing the blacks and the Mexicans looting stores. There was white people doing that. That's why I get fed up. I get fed up because the media, they have this story that they want to sell. Because the media is for ratings and advertising dollars. They're not there to help us.
Yeah. So I like that you said that, Steve, because here's the thing. I mean, we know it happens, but we know that the media wants sensationalism. They want to tell a narrative, and they want to show a certain point of view because it has been sensational for it to be a story. So that is going to fan the flames somewhat. It's hard for me at least, because I'm looking from the point of view of being a black man slammed against many police cars, even when I had a badge in my pocket. So we're looking at it from that point of view. Here's my thing, though, and I try to keep it to law enforcement because this is the thing, though. As I think Rick, or one of you all said, when it comes down to us helping our fellow law enforcement or what have you, in our job, we alpha males got to do the job. When it comes down to do it, we got to do our job the way we've been trained to do it. I can't go. I go back to somebody gave an order to say, hey, y'all need to stand down and don't hurt anybody. But
orders just changed.
But orders change. That's the thing. That's the thing. When the combat comes into your door, into your castle. I'll explain later on, but right now, orders have changed. I'm going to full ninja mode. You
I'm
know?
in the
I saw absolutely no tactics.
Yeah.
I saw no
Well,
tactics at
that's the
all.
thing. I'm gonna get to you, Steve. But they said Maxine Waters said she had conversation with the chief 4 days before this happened. He said he has a comprehensive plan in place. So that comprehensive plan was putting a few gates out in front that you can move aside. No,
How much does he get paid for that?
I don't know, guys. I didn't see evidence of a comprehensive plan. Maybe y'all saw
Well, they
something.
did have vests on. A couple of them had on vests. That was comprehensive.
Well, they had on yellow traffic control.
Right, reflective vests.
Go ahead, Steve. You gonna say something?
I forgot what I was going to say now.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm laughing at the yellow traffic vest.
They don't have a yellow vest. You're gonna say something, Clint, and I'm gonna start wrapping up, guys.
No, I that was my very point right there. The tactics involved. I was waiting on somebody to come out and light the tar pits and the moat around the Capitol. I mean, because you see people scaling the walls, climbing like Spider-Man. I mean, so it was nothing that was in place. I mean, there was people on the Capitol that I didn't think people could even go.
And they're actually scaling the walls like ninjas.
Looks like Game of Thrones. It looks like Game of Thrones.
They're scaling the wall like ninja climb up a castle. I was seeing a castle being breached by samurai and ninja with the samurai flags, their colors going through the door and things like that is what I saw. So guys, I don't want to take a lot of your time. I want to do something to wrap this up. I want to go around and I just want. Well, here's the thing. This is a bad time for police officers. Chuck, you said it. And police officers take a rap. And I really think, seeing people with the selfies and all that kind of stuff and seeing this response make us take an even bigger rap. So to close this out, I want to go around the room and I want to say, what message do you want to leave for anybody that might be watching this as your last words towards what we saw? Maybe what you felt about it and what you want them to be a takeaway from what we just did from the last hour. Because I want to talk to the people and let them know that, hey, we understand. We're the boys. We're men in blue. And we see your point of view. And that's why I have a civilian here as well. And then what's that going to be? Before I do that, though, Clinton, any burning questions that you have that you want to ask while you got 5 law enforcement guys here before they do their round robin? Anything else that has been asked of you that's been in conversation that you would like to ask us right now? And it don't even have to be about the Capitol. It could be about police in general.
The dynamics of the organizations in law enforcement. I know that there has to be a element of peer pressure. Even amongst alpha males, the egos in there. When you talk about the blue line, and things like that, within the organization, how was that communicated outside in the civilian sector? Because I think as a civilian, as a black man, drive my car and, and you go up, I don't get intimidated by a police officer. I see a professional over there and anyone I see in uniform. And my first sentiment is what do I have to do to help you, as being a law abiding citizen? But when you're being approached now and you have this dark cloud of the blue line and this police officer now is going to side with his comrade or his buddy, that's thicker than upholding the law and protecting me. How is that narrative dispelled? Because that's what's being put out into the community, whether it be by the media or sitting at the table at the lunchroom table or in the classroom or on our social environment. How does the police department or you professionals dispel that narrative that's out there?
Okay, so let me answer first, then I'm gonna let the other guys answer. See, now media and television and movies give us a bad rap, number one. Chuck said it and Rico said it when I interviewed them. When we have our conversations, I turn to Chuck and I turn to Rico and I say, look, I got into this field because I believe in making a difference. I believe in helping people. I believe in being a protector. And I tell Rico and Chuck, I say, look, don't do anything in front of me that's going to compromise my integrity. And I talked about this the other day. I said, because if I see it, forget thin blue. I don't know. I think Rico said his blue, or maybe it was Chuck, said his blue line is real thin. One of you guys said that.
I said that.
I am not going to lie for you. If you did it, I'm not lying for you. I'm not compromising. Now, I'll say this. I'm going to protect my brothers. Just like you served in the Navy. And when it came down to warfare Navy, you're going to protect your fellow sailors. I'm going to protect my brothers in blue. But I'm not lying for you. I'm not stealing for you. I'm not taking money for you. And I'm not going to compromise my integrity, my trust, and compromise my family's livelihood for something that you do when you know you're doing wrong. That's Derek's point of view. What about some of you guys' others' point of view?
I'll start off on that because we actually got into that conversation pretty in depth. Some of it was recorded, some of it wasn't, and everything. For me, the thin blue line versus the blue code, which is, the blue code is really that we're not supposed to rat on one another. They kind of go hand in hand in a way because we have no one else to watch our backs when we are out on the road but ourselves. Okay, so I mean, we're out on the road and make a traffic stop. All of a sudden we're in a fight for our lives. The only thing for me, I'll use myself for example. When I was a deputy sheriff, my nearest backup was an hour away. I was one of 4 Black police officers in the entire county, and we're talking about like 9 municipals. Okay, just 4. And when I called for help, sometimes that help didn't come. Because just like Derek was said, I did not violate my principles. I told a friend of mine just real recently, when we got into a discussion, we were getting together. He was a high school buddy, actually. He was in the area. And I saw people that were gathered there. They were smoking weed. Time for me to go. You guys can stay there. I'm just that way. Don't put me in the position to do that. Now, one of the solutions that I have recommended, and I know it's not going to happen because there's money involved, and they're talking about defunding the police now, so they're going to look everywhere they can to cut costs. But polygraphs should be given not only for an initial hire, but on a yearly basis. That's just my opinion. Just because, we walk that thin blue line sometimes we trip when we go to the other side, where, some of these guys get themselves in trouble.
I said, how they say one bad apple don't spoil a whole bunch? Well, one bad cop spoils it for all of us,
For us all.
So, Steve, your thought?
Like I used to tell the new cops when they come on, they're like, "Hey, Whit, what's being a cop?" I said, "Well, it's kind of like being a pro athlete, except you make 1/1,000,000th of what they make." I said, "But let your ass get in trouble. You're every breaking story. You're every front page of the newspaper. So look out for yourself. You got don't do anything to compromise your integrity, your morals." And I never did either. Like I always said, the one who hates a bad cop the most is a good cop, right? And you're right, Chuck. It is a fine line that we have to walk because that bad cop might be the one saving your ass in a shootout.
Yep. Exactly.
So it's a real fine line.
If they don't show, we got a problem.
Exactly. Right. So it's a real fine line that we have to walk. I don't know. I try to live my life by my example, and I try to set that tone for others around me. I'm like, Chuck, if you're smoking weed, you're doing something I'm not with. I'm not going to make you be out the bad guy, but I'm removing myself from that situation. It's not me.
Hey, Clint, one thing you got to understand is that we have to take it from 2 sides. We have the people in the street are going to hate us, right? It's not like when we were growing up and we had officer friendly out there. People in the street are going to hate us, but we got to depend on these guys right here to pull our asses out of the fire sometime. So I don't want my brothers in blue. I'm not going to compromise myself, but I don't want my brothers in blue to hate me to the point where I'm surrounded by a gang and nobody's showing up. They all sitting back having a drink saying, all right, we'll get there, but we're going to take our time.
Because it has happened.
It happens. We've all known incidents of that happening. Rick, your point of view on that.
No, I agree with what you and Steve were saying, even Chuck, one bad apple, right? Steve and I probably face it a lot in our profession too, right? Being on the private side. right? You have a lot of, unfortunately, fly-by-night security companies, right? You have some states where, you just need to fill out quick paperwork and you're done in and out within a couple hours. Other states, you need a test, right? Poor training. So Clint, I mean, I can tell you this, I don't like to see what I saw happen either, regardless if it was at the Capitol, regardless if it was on the streets of Chicago, the streets of LA. It makes all our jobs harder. And that's the last thing that we want to do. Our jobs are hard enough in what we do. We don't need these type of things to happen, right? So this is where, even myself as an industry expert in the security side, I've got some things in the works, but can't disclose them just yet. But I'm doing some things with a great group of guys that'll try to help make our industry that much better from a security and a private side. Just the same way you guys are doing from a law enforcement side. Hey, how do that stigmatism of we're all bad? No, we're not. Right? It just we're not all that way. So
right. And for you, go ahead, Clint.
It's tough. It's not easy.
And Rick, for you, it's even harder because you have to get rid of that stigmatism where security guards are bottom of the barrel guys, can't get another job. These guys are not professional. They don't have training. You got to deal with all that too.
We do, and that's some of the questions I know we have for our next chat. But
yes. Yeah. And Rico, you the last one on that subject.
Here's what I'd say: your training is everything. If you're coming into this business, whether it's law enforcement, security, and you're not serious about it, go somewhere else. If you're coming for a paycheck, go somewhere else. And if you think that the greatest academy in the world, the Federal Law Enforcement Training Academy, is going to teach you to shoot, you're mistaken. You're going to have to do that. And if you think they're going to teach you to fight, you're sadly mistaken. Because if there's nothing in your tank, they're not going to fill it up for you. So if you're not willing to die for what you believe in, you're not going to put yourself into it.
It's not your job.
Furthermore, if you have no integrity, then I don't want to be around you. I was always in situations where, and I learned this from an old guy, old seasoned vet. What's the U.S. attorney say? Because that's who we reported to. Mm-hmm. My boss could tell me to do all types of things, but in the back of my mind, what's the U.S. attorney going to say when this hits the fan? Mm-hmm. And that's how I govern myself. So you have to have tactics. You have to have a code of some sort, no matter how you came to have it. But that code has to be able to take you to the end. Mm-hmm. And I just didn't see any of that. And like I said, once again, if you're looking to come into law enforcement or you're new to law enforcement, make sure you know what you're doing. Make sure you understand the law where you are. Do not obey invalid orders. And when the stuff hit the fan Wednesday, all those orders went out the window. You strike the guy next to me with a fire extinguisher. I'm taking out your knees. I'm gonna break something. Stick something across my barrier. I'm retired now. You stick something across my barrier, you're not getting it back in the same condition that you put it. Now, granted, I understand this whole concept about drawing your weapon, but every time you put your hand across there, you're going to have fingers going in different directions. Every time you keep putting them past there.
I remember you saying one time, I don't know if you remember this, Rico, 20 years ago, you said if you reach in with that thing, it ain't coming back. If you reach in and touch it, it's not coming back. And Steve, and let me say this, Steve is sitting there right now. Steve does protective services. That means that every single day, every single client, Steve is willing to give his life for whoever that client is, whoever he's protecting. Chuck is willing to give his life. I was willing to give my life. Rick is willing to give their life. I don't know if every young guy out there now is willing to give his life. It's like the guy who joins the military because he wants to be in the military or joins because he wants to pay for college. I don't know if we have the same mission, vision, and goal when we go into this. There are
sheep and there are sheepdog dressed like there are sheepdogs, and then there are sheep dressed like sheepdogs. Yep. You're gonna know when it hits the fan who's who. And Chuck's one's gonna bark and the other's gonna go bad.
Chuck said that guys gotta have conversations with folks who've been around like us when they're deciding on his career so they can know what they're really getting into.
That's right.
It changes. Everybody who's on here right now has changed because of his career field.
Yep.
Steve is a different person. Rick, all of us are different people because of that.
And you know something, Derek? The thing about it, there's some family members, some real close family members that don't understand that.
Oh yeah, all of it. All of it. I'm sure Steve can say that. I'm sure Rick can say that. There's family members that don't understand our way of thinking because we think differently.
My wife.
All our wives, because they don't see it every day.
Oh, my wife.
Those of you that have kids, you end up passing on your way of thinking to your children. I have a daughter that's worse than I am.
My wife is good. She's harder. She's harder than I am.
I know.
She's harder than I am.
So, Clint, last question, and then I'm gonna close this out because guys got to go. It's Friday; they don't want to be with me all night. Clint, any other question from you?
No, I don't have any questions. I want to just say thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of this. I mean, I've been thoroughly educated on the some of the inside thoughts on exactly what happens, and what it has done is it's given me information that where I can change the narrative on what's being out there, so I can disseminate and look at the information as it comes in. So. This is good. I will tell you that, when we talk about the blue line, I never thought the blue line was a bad thing. Absolutely. I mean, that's camaraderie. There's safety in numbers. There's protection when you know that, your buddy has your back. We called it a shipmate, your battle buddy.
Right. That's because you've been a Navy man since you were 17 years old. You've been a military guy.
Yeah. So I understand all that, and it's good that when I hear people talk about the blue line, it's not a bad thing. This is what's going to protect them while they're out there. And hearing this, it's my job to explain that to my son. Don't be intimidated by what's out there. But when you follow the law, they're out there. They ensure that you're protected because you're following the law. So I do appreciate for you guys letting me be a part of this discussion. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that. 'Cause I want the folks I invited here to know that this is valuable to people, and people actually will enjoy hearing and seeing what we do here. Number one. And number two, man, you're right. People just don't understand the decisions we have to make sometime and how quick we have to make those decisions. So we give this time to be able to do that. And I'm glad to hear that you say this changed your way of thinking in some ways. So to close it out, Steve, last words.
Hey, just thank you for having me on as on your panel.
I appreciate
all the different viewpoints.
I appreciate you giving your Friday for this, man. I appreciate that.
I'll have some bourbon in a little bit.
Yeah. I wish you can get some from Detroit down here to Maryland. Hey. Actually, I don't even drink, man. I'm just talking stuff. So, Rick.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he does.
A little bit. A little bit of cognac with a cigarette. Now, Rick.
No, same thing Steve said. I appreciate, being a part of this panel. I think it's a great group here, right? I mean, different industry experience, different backgrounds. But again, same goal, right? And I think that's what I appreciate the most about this group.
And I want to say this, Rick has already have an individual, we're going to do an individual talk about company, career, and all that. Steve, I'd like to invite you to do the same thing. If I can get an individual interview with you in the coming weeks, I put one on every Friday. So if I can do that with you. Chuck, last words.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Just like to say to everyone that's out there that we are not the bad guys, okay? Everyone says that, there's more good cops than there are bad cops. That is so true. We do try to do our absolute best, and a lot of times we are handcuffed in doing that job. I personally have been through so many funerals of my brothers and sisters out there. I understand about the Black Lives Matter movement, and and then there's the All Lives Matter, and then there's the Blue Lives Matter. Me personally, I've been to too many funerals of Black and white police officers serving their nation, serving the people. Honestly, I'm kind of tired of it.
Yeah.
And it hurts me. It makes me numb. And I want them to understand that what has happened, what has taken place in the past, I'm going to say the past 4 years, because it wasn't just yesterday. We've had riots and events all over the place because of police officers, allegedly abusing, or some of them being convicted for, murder and things of that nature. But just a simple fact that there's more good cops out there than there are bad ones.
Yep. And warriors die young, folks. These people are dying young. Yeah. Rico.
Oh, hey, it's good to be a part of this group, and I enjoy the repartees. And hey, I can echo the same sentiments. I mean, this business isn't for everybody. This isn't for everybody. If I could kick a field goal 60 yards, I wouldn't have done this. I mean, but yeah, I would have, because I enjoyed this.
Well, but you're big enough to be
this isn't for everybody. Yeah, this isn't for everybody. And if you decide to do it, do your research. Find yourself some mentors. It's a lot easier than it used to be. They don't even have to be in your town. And law enforcement is supposed to be the sheepdogs looking out for the sheep. If it's not that way, then we need to change it. But I have to agree with Chuck. It has to be a lot more good ones than there are bad ones. It just has to be. That's just the way it is. Otherwise, things would be a whole lot different than they are today.
Mm-hmm. All right, and last one, Clinton, parting words.
Well, again, God bless each and every one of you. Thank you so much for having me on this panel, Derek. Giving me a phone call. And we have to meet. We live so close together in the same area,
and we're cousins.
I need to make it, and we're cousins. That's right. So,
what's up with that, Derek?
God bless. Yeah, God bless each and every one of you, and be safe out there. And and before I leave, roll tide.
All right, everybody. So,
there's that Alabama.
Thank you guys very much. I really appreciate it. I'm going to be putting this on about 40 groups. It's going to be out in the next hour. So, if you don't mind, I'll post it to you. I'll tag you all so it can come onto your Facebook page. Thank you all. I really appreciate it. Go ahead and enjoy your Friday now. And this wraps up another Blue Table Talk.